guys, welcome to FoundFlix. After last week's exciting events, episode 5 of The Mist switches its focus to character drama, giving us a mostly uninteresting episode that doesn't propel the grander story forward in any meaningful way. I really felt that the show was starting to find its footing and developing its ideas in interesting ways, but all of that good was pretty much undone by episode 5. Regardless, there are still some nuggets of interesting stuff going on here, and at least a few compelling reveals related to the characters' backstories. So let's head back into The Mist, looking at the big mysteries and reveals in the waiting room. I think the major failing here was spending the entire hour with Kevin's group rather than switching between each, which the show has done in every episode so far. And there's not really much going on in their story. Kevin is still trying to get to the mall to find his family, as he has been the entire show. After Bryan got shot in the leg last week, Kev's crew speeds off in search of medical attention at the local hospital. And it's at the hospital that Kevin conveniently runs into his very injured jackass brother Mike with a rebar stuck through his liver, and it's their shaky reunion that takes up the majority of the episode's story. Mike fills Kevin in about what led to his injury, and we are again given further evidence of how the mist works, but this time pretty much stuff that we already know. Mike says that he saw some normal-looking teenagers appear to him while in the mist. These kids attacked Mike, stabbing him with the rebar, revealing to him that they were doing it because of Ricky Gustavo, someone Mike used to beat up in school as a kid. Again, we are seeing that the mist knows everything about whoever is in the mist and is aware of all of their past sins, and it uses these sins to judge those based on their past. That's why the mist created the manifestation of the kids who attacked Mike. He's being judged because of the wrongs that he's done in the past. It appears that to the mist, if your soul is too far gone, the only acceptable judgment is death. Mike manages to escape the mist, but his injury is getting worse, and it's only a matter of time until it kills him. But the more advanced equipment and sterile environment required for the surgery are in an area of the hospital that has been taken over by the mist. So Kevin, desperate to save everyone in the world apparently, hatches an illogical plan to perform his brother's surgery himself via walkie-talkie instructions from a doctor. Okay, sure, why not? While making their way through the mist-filled halls, we see that the mist itself can actually cause physical harm, which is a first. Once they enter the mist, Mike starts to be affected by this, with blood streaming from under his fingernails. I'd say this is due to Mike's escaping from his earlier attackers and not dying like the mist intended for him to do. So once Mike is back in the mist, it continues to injure him, but isn't actually strong enough here to actually manifest another person to deal out the damage. It's worth noting too that Kevin doesn't suffer the same effect, so it must be tied specifically to the misjudgment of Mike. Miraculously, Kevin is able to perform the surgery and remove the rebar from his brother's abdomen, because surgery is no big deal. Who needs 7 years of medical school anyway? Pfft, that's dumb. But on their way back through the mist, it attacks Mike more severely, causing blood to pour out of his mouth. And Kevin actually slips on a pool of blood, losing Mike, who falls off the gurney in the process. And suddenly, on the ceiling above where Mike is on the ground, is revealed a gross pulsating pile of leeches. They start falling from the ceiling, with more and more landing on Mike, even entering into his body through his fresh wound. While the leeches here are cool and gross, this is just another example of what we've seen from the mist already. It can apparently manifest various creatures from nature, just as it does with manifesting humans. And these creatures are under the mist's control, which it uses to judge and attack humans trapped in the mist. And now with Mike's body covered in leeches, there is no chance of saving him, and Kevin is forced to kill his brother to end his suffering. So all of that for nothing. Even if all of this didn't add up to too much, there were still a few pieces of information in these scenes said by Mike that I feel like tie into another plot thread in this episode that is told in flashbacks. These flashbacks take place about 10 years ago based on the age of Alex here, and we see Kevin and Eve when they first moved to Bridgeville. I guess the idea of these scenes is to give us a little more development about Eve's wild past, which she has been trying to move on from. But she still clearly has that part of her, whether she admits it to Kevin or not. And we see this revealed in a pretty damn awkward sex scene. When the scene started, I was already like, what? Why is this happening? And it appears Kevin's sad, slow thrusts aren't enough to thrill Eve, who breathily asks for Kevin to go harder. Oh, I thought I was just supposed to lifelessly hump you while you laid there motionless. Isn't that sex? That's sex, I think. He obliges her request, increasing in intensity, but it takes a few more urgings from Eve to go harder to get to the level she desires. So even though she's trying to move on from her past here and start a new life with a milquetoast Kevin, she can't truly get rid of that side of her. And perhaps that is who she actually is, and trying to move on with Kevin is kind of a facade. And you know, maybe Eve was kind of a slut back in the day, because all these scenes lead to the big reveal that Kevin is in fact not Alex's father. Ooh, baby drama. But of course, Kevin doesn't want to know who the father is, and the secret is kept for now. But I'm betting that Kevin's brother is the father. Mike is a pretty rough kind of guy, and certainly stands in stark contrast to Kevin's generally meek demeanor. And it makes sense that Eve would have been more attracted to someone like Mike rather than Kevin. And back at the hospital, Mike tells Kevin that every guy wanted Eve, but in the end, she chose Kevin, saying how could he not hate him for that? This all means to me there's definitely more to Mike and Eve's relationship than either are letting on. I can definitely imagine once Kevin reunites with Eve, he reveals that his brother is dead, and she reacts in a much more emotional way about it than would be expected. And thusly, Eve is forced to reveal to Kevin that his brother is Alex's father. I mean, nothing else really makes any sense story-wise other than this outcome. And it would at least be dramatically interesting to see what impact this information coming out would have on Eve and Kevin's relationship. There was one final big reveal to discuss, but we really only get the very beginning tease of where this could go. When Mia goes to visit Bryan in his hospital room, she is told a room number by the nurse. But when she sees the man in the room, it's not Bryan, but someone else. And he reveals that he is the real Bryan. So the guy we've been calling Bryan that's part of Kevin's group isn't actually Bryan, this guy is. The real Bryan reveals that he was beat up by a man matching fake Bryan's physical characteristics, a man called Jonah, who clearly is our Bryan, so I will refer to him as Jonah from now on. Mia asks why he was beaten up, and Bryan doesn't know, saying that information is above his pay grade. So Bryan worked at Arrowhead in some low-level position, then got beat up by Jonah, who was also at Arrowhead, who then took Bryan's identity, somehow got amnesia, and wound up dumped on a mountain before the mist started rolling in. It's all a bit nuts. So here's what I think happened. I believe that Jonah was a test subject at the Arrowhead facility where he was being experimented on in some capacity. There's still one shot from the trailer that has Bryan tied up in some kind of a facility that backs this up, though we don't know the specifics of the experiments they are doing or if they tie into the mist in any way, but it sure doesn't look like fun. Based on this, I'd say Jonah was being experimented on by Arrowhead and then broke free from his captors, and during the escape came across Bryan, who he then beat up and stole his fatigues. With the fatigues on, Jonah would be able to blend in with the other soldiers there and would help to facilitate his escape. It also makes sense that Arrowhead would have wiped Jonah's memory, or it could also just be an effect of whatever the experiments are they were doing as well. But for now, we only get a tiny tease of any development, with Jonah only learning that the man in the room is Bryan, and thusly he is not. Regardless, it looks like Jonah was heavily involved with Arrowhead in some way, probably again as a test subject, and through remembering his past, we will more than likely learn a lot more about the events that led to the Mist's arrival. Alright guys, that'll do it for my look at episode 5 of The Mist. This one wasn't a real winner, but hopefully next week will get us back to the other groups where a lot more interesting dynamics are starting to emerge. But what did you guys think of the episode? Who do you think is Alex's real father? And what do you believe is Jonah's real backstory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.